Welcome to the deep dive. This week, we are ripping up the postcard and looking right past the neon glare of the 2025 Las Vegas Grand Prix. This was an event that was sold to us purely on spectacle, round 22 of the championship, but as our sources confirm, the truly seismic drama, well, it occurred long after the champagne was sprayed, in the cold light of the scrutineering bay.
It's a classic Formula One tale, isn't it? You have this contrast between the dizzying heights of global entertainment and then the brutal reality of technical compliance. We've synthesized a wealth of material here for you. We're primarily drawing from the passionate and often highly critical fan discussions on the Formula One Reddit community.
Right.
And we're juxtaposing that quite powerfully, actually, against the hard, undeniable facts reported by BBC Sport regarding a devastating post-race disqualification.
And our mission really is to give you the shortcut to understanding the real story of Vegas. Was this F1's greatest show? Did the commercial hype completely overshadow the sport? And most importantly, how did a microscopic detail, a thin piece of material on the underside of a race car, completely rewrite the ending of what is shaping up to be one of the tightest championship battles in years?
Well, Las Vegas tried to be the biggest, most expensive, most talked about event on the calendar. And look, while it certainly achieved that level of discourse and celebrity engagement, we have to unpack the two simultaneous dramas. You had the visual assault of commercialism versus the sort of forensic severity of the technical regulations.
And they just collided.
They collided with destructive force, and the consequences for the championship are now, well, they're undeniable.
Right then, let's unpack this. We're going to start where every race starts. The action on the strip itself. What actually happened before the penalties came down?
Well, the immediate result, the one that was broadcast around the world before the paperwork arrived, that was a victory for Max Verstappen.
And a crucial one for him.
Absolutely vital. It came at a point where the championship momentum felt like it was shifting, daily. One fan comment we analyzed just perfectly captured the atmosphere, noting that Max's victory had kept himself in contention for another race.
Wow.
That singular phrase, it just speaks volumes about how incredibly tight and unpredictable the championship had become in those final rounds. Every single point mattered.
Yeah.
Even before we knew how many points were about to be erased from the board.
And what truly stood out, even amidst the backdrop of, all the neon and the high-speed action, was the human factor. Specifically, that celebrated, often quite volatile, yet undeniably effective partnership between Verstappen and his race engineer, Giampiero Lambiase.
GP, yeah.
GP, of course.
The fan discussion around them was overwhelmingly positive. It's reached the point where that duo is considered a genuine legend in the making. Our sources describe them as truly one of the greatest engineer-driver duos, suggesting their strategic cohesion is, and I quote, near telepathic.
And you can see it, can't you?
Oh, when you watch them operate, it is astonishing. They manage these complex tire strategies, they adapt to safety cars, they navigate minute regulation changes with a synchronicity that, frankly, very few other pairings achieve. That is the engine driving their consistent success.
And we saw that immediate, intense release of pressure right after the checkered flag. Max, who is famous for his sort of focused intensity, just erupted with emotion in the car.
Exactly. That raw display of success, that emotional payoff, it was absolutely visible for the cameras. The famous anecdote from the fan threads was that Max damn nearly waterboarded GP during the celebratory water shower in Parc Fermé.
I remember seeing that.
It's a dramatic visual, but it underlines how much those two are in the fight together. It wasn't just another win. It was a critical, high-stakes victory in the heat of a brutal title fight.
Moving beyond the winner, we have to talk about the McLarens, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, because they put in performances that seem to indicate they were genuine title threats, which makes the subsequent disaster just so much more poignant.
Norris, specifically, was singled out for incredibly high praise regarding his pace. Despite the eventual disqualification, a fan comment highlighted that his clean air pace was really good.
And that's key, isn't it? Clean air.
It's absolutely key. It suggests that the underlying car performance was stellar. Had he not been bogged down in traffic or perhaps faced an earlier setback, which is unfortunately often the reality in street circuits, he would have been absolutely capable of challenging Max for the lead.
That raw speed indicates McLaren was on the very edge of the performance envelope.
And this is where we begin to weave in that crucial technical foreshadowing, isn't it? If a team like McLaren has found this phenomenal pace, especially on a high-speed circuit like Vegas, we have to consider the engineering trade-offs they were making.
Absolutely. The learner listener needs to understand that in Formula One, performance is always a risk calculation. If Norris's car showed exceptional pace, it implies the engineers were pushing the limits of the car's setup to exploit the ground effect, meaning running the car as low as physically possible.
As low as they could dare.
They are effectively balancing on a razor's edge, maximizing performance versus ensuring the car doesn't scrape the ground so frequently and aggressively that it wears out the protective skid blocks beneath. That phenomenal pace in the clean air wasn't a fluke, it was a calculated gamble, and we now know that gamble tragically failed.
It provides a much darker context to that initial assessment of speed, knowing the cost they ultimately paid. And while Norris was setting blistering times, we also had a major on-track incident that provided some unexpected high-speed drama in the early hours.
That's right. The collision between Liam Lawson and Oscar Piastri was certainly memorable. The sources highlighted that fans were watching this in the dead of night. Some specific mentions were people checking the time at 4:02 a.m.
Oh, wow.
And even in that exhausted state, they were shocked by the intensity of the incident. It was a high-speed compression moment near the unforgiving barriers, which always adds a layer of danger and unpredictability, especially on a brand-new street surface.
Now, let's pivot to the core argument that really divided the fan base: the track itself. Ignoring the spectacle for a moment, the racing quality drew some fierce criticism.
It did, and we saw a massive fault line open up. One contingent simply found the race boring, labeling it "sis," and one of the most boring races of the season. That is an incredibly damaging verdict for a race that cost billions to orchestrate. The feeling was that the design compromised sporting merit for visual appeal.
And the specific technical critique of the layout was damning. It's called a Mickey Mouse circuit, which is, F1 vernacular for a low-grip, overly simplistic track designed without flow or challenging corner sequences.
And why?
Why? Because it's 90% straight with a few turns, leading to the blunt conclusion: it sucks for racing.
The critique is understandable, especially from a traditionalist perspective. The circuit layout forces cars to rely so heavily on straight-line speed down the strip, making it very difficult for drivers to execute complex strategies in the corners. The lack of challenging, high downforce corner complexes, it just limits the opportunities for an aggressive driver to separate themselves from the pack.
It just becomes a procession.
It risks turning the race into a high-speed procession punctuated only by dramatic incidents or safety cars.
But to be fair, the fans who enjoyed the event were quick to mount a counter-argument. They weren't just defending the location, they were arguing that Vegas wasn't uniquely bad compared to other F1 venues.
That's a crucial distinction. They argued that while Vegas might not be perfect, its flaws were being unfairly magnified. They specifically cited circuits like Miami, Montreal, and even the historically significant Catalonia in Spain, claiming these were worse for overtaking.
That's a bold claim.
It is, and it challenges the notion that all traditional non-street circuits are automatically superior.
So what makes those established tracks similar to Vegas in that regard? What's the common thread?
It usually comes down to the nature of the corners and the runoff areas.
Right.
In Miami and Catalonia, for instance, once the cars get into a rhythm, the corner sequences are often too high speed or too narrow to allow for a clean, sustained overtaking attempt without just resorting to DRS on the main straight. Catalonia, in particular, suffered for years until they made configuration changes.
Right.
The fan argument here is that Vegas, while simplistic, at least offers massive braking zones at the end of its long straights, the very definition of a high-speed street track.
So if the racing quality is comparable to some less loved venues, the difference then becomes purely about the backdrop, the atmosphere, and the commercial intent behind it all. And that brings us inevitably to the spectacle.
If Section 1 was about the sport, Section 2 is about the market. The Las Vegas Grand Prix was fundamentally a massive commercial operation, specifically engineered to maximize F1's visibility and profitability in the U.S. This drove the central complaint among the highly engaged F1 audience, this feeling of manufactured popularity.
And this is a long-standing issue in F1, isn't it? Fans have often argued that F1 is fundamentally a sport for the rich and elite, comparable perhaps to the environment of Monaco. But Vegas, according to the sources, took this perception and just turbocharged it. It wasn't just about exclusivity, it was about outright commercial saturation.
Precisely. The core grievance was that the event's focus wasn't on the quality of the race, but on the spectacle and celebrity engagement. Fans felt that attendees were only present for clout or because they're paid to be there, rather than a genuine appreciation of the motorsport itself.
It's a corporate party.
It became the ultimate corporate party disguised as a race weekend.
It's the sheer number of brands integrated into every single millisecond of the broadcast. and the physical event that truly overwhelmed people. It reached a point of parity.
The fan quote capturing the sponsor overload is perhaps the single most revealing piece of data we have on the event's identity. Listing these disparate entities, Disney, Bellagio, Lego, Rolex, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Ford, Cadillac, Heineken, GP, it just shows how far F1 has moved from being just a sport to becoming a massive multi-platform promotional vehicle.
That list is almost theatrical in its absurdity. It feels like a corporate Mad Libs exercise. And we have to zoom in on a specific detail the sources mentioned, the emphasis on Heineken 0.0.
That mention is highly significant in the context of American sporting culture. In many major U.S. sports leagues, there is a strong historical tradition of promoting non-alcoholic or low-alcohol products during televised events, often tied to responsible drinking campaigns. By centering Heineken 0.0, F1 was consciously integrating into that established American sponsorship language.
So it was a very deliberate choice.
Oh, a very calculated market integration, ensuring maximum corporate acceptance while still associating the event with a major global brand.
And the absurdity just kept on mounting. The fan joke that they were now waiting for Ronald McDonald to wave the checkered flag next year. It perfectly illustrates how far the event tipped into self-parody. It was less a sporting event and more a multi-brand, highly themed attraction.
This intensity reached its absolute peak, of course, with the post-race presentation. It was engineered not just to celebrate the winner, but to keep global viewers engaged through a visual overload.
We're talking about the full Vegas maximalist treatment. Detail the highlights for us, the things that truly caused the storm.
Well, the sequence was highly choreographed. First, the elaborate Bellagio fountain show, synchronized to music and lighting. Then, the integration of technology. Dozens of drones flying in formation to shape a giant F1 car in the sky above the strip.
I saw that, yeah.
And finally, the ultimate piece of cultural messaging. The brand new monumental sphere lighting up with the Disney logo. The Disney logo on arguably the world's most high-tech, expensive advertising screen visible to everyone. It was a declaration of the event's priorities.
And this spectacle resulted in that predictable but fascinating fan dichotomy. You had the traditionalists, those who were accustomed to the reserved, perhaps austere nature of European podium ceremonies.
Absolutely. One of the clearest counter-reactions was a comment stating, "I'm too European for this," which just perfectly captures the sense of cultural dislocation. This group found the entire production overly manufactured, tacky, and ultimately disrespectful to the sporting achievements.
Right. They felt the focus shifted entirely from the athleticism to the light show.
Entirely. Yet the other half of the fan community embraced it fully. They loved the Vegas showmanship. They took a pragmatic view, saying that if the circuit layout results in a mediocre race, they might as well get an elaborate fountain, lights, and fireworks show out of it.
It's a fair point, I suppose.
This is a crucial acceptance point. They acknowledged the flaw in the track design, but chose to value the atmosphere and the novelty. They are effectively saying F1 in America is different. We accept the trade-off of less authentic racing for more outlandish entertainment. It's an interesting philosophical divide regarding what F1 should represent in the 21st century.
But where the outrage transcended the divide, where even the showmanship fans felt cheated, was the deliberate removal of one of the sport's most sacred traditions, the driver cool-down room.
That's where the event truly lost touch with the sporting essence. The cool-down room is a tiny, often cramped space where drivers, immediately after stepping out of the car, have those raw, unscripted, highly emotional interviews.
This is where you get the gold.
It's where you get genuine insight into their minds and their performance. Fans felt robbed of the Verstappen podcast, the affectionate term for Max's unfiltered debriefs with the race interviewer.
And what was that authenticity replaced with?
A surreal, hyper-commercialized replacement. The drivers were instead immediately ushered into a Lego Cadillac, driven by the actor and personality Terry Crews, who then led them in an impromptu karaoke session down the pit lane.
You can't make this up.
It replaced genuine reflection with forced entertainment.
I can just imagine the drivers, having just battled at 200 miles an hour for a world championship, being told to belt out, "Don't stop believing." It is the perfect encapsulation of the commercial absurdity. The fan comment, "The cool-down room was the friends we made along the way," is just pure, necessary sarcasm.
It showed F1 prioritizing a 5-minute clip of viral content for social media over providing meaningful access to the athletes. However, even in this maelstrom of absurdity, we still managed to extract a few moments of authentic human connection during the official podium presentation.
Like Max's quick-witted 69 joke, which was a reference back to the casino culture.
Yeah. Exactly. The fans love that, calling it fucking hilarious. It was a classic cheeky moment, demonstrating Max's ability to fit the environment without losing his sharp edge. And the aesthetic elements also screamed Vegas. The commissioner's tacky yet sweet dragon jacket, the trophy described as looking like a peacock.
And the detail that the second-place trophy was very small now takes on a deeply ironic tone, doesn't it? A prophetic detail, given that the second-place finisher, Lando Norris, was about to have his result wiped from the record entirely.
This is the moment we transition fully from marketing analysis back to pure, unyielding sporting fact. This is the moment that all the fireworks, the celebrity appearances, and the billions spent become utterly irrelevant. Less than a day after Verstappen took the flag, BBC Sport confirmed the game-changing news. Lando Norris, second-place finisher, and Oscar Piastri, his teammate, were both disqualified from the Las Vegas Grand Prix.
A stunning turn of events that didn't just hurt the team, but fundamentally fractured the championship narrative we thought we were watching. It wasn't a penalty for on-track aggression. It was a microscopic violation of the technical rulebook.
And that is why it's so critical. It wasn't subjective race management. It was empirical measurement. The cars failed post-race technical scrutiny. The cause, a severe technical infringement concerning the car floor's legality.
Let's dedicate some serious time here to defining this infringement for our learner. We need to go beyond the simple mention of skid block wear. What is the skid block, and what exactly went wrong with the McLarens?
Okay. The skid block, often referred to as a plank, is a mandatory element fitted longitudinally to the underside of the F1 car. It's usually made of a composite material, often a resin-bonded wood known as J-Brock, chosen for its consistency and resistance to heat. Its core purpose, established decades ago after safety concerns, is to act as a definitive measurement device and a protective barrier.
Okay, so how does it function as a measurement device?
The regulations stipulate a minimum thickness for this plank, specifically a minimum depth that must remain after the race. For instance, if the plank starts at 10 millimeters thick, the rule might state that no more than 1 millimeter of material can be worn away during the race. If the technical delegate finds that the wear exceeds this allowance, meaning the plank is too thin in certain measurement holes, the car is deemed to have been running illegally low.
And the McLarens were below this.
The McLarens were found to be below this minimum prescribed depth.
And this leads us to the critical engineering question. Why is running the car lower considered an illegal performance benefit? This is the root of the severity of the disqualification.
Fundamentally, it's all down to modern F1 aerodynamics, which heavily rely on ground effect. The car's floor is essentially an inverted wing designed to accelerate the air passing beneath it, creating an area of low pressure. This vacuum sucks the car down onto the track, generating massive amounts of downforce.
And the closer the floor is to the ground, the more efficient that seal becomes.
Precisely. Running the car lower tightens the seal between the floor edge and the track surface, maximizing the Venturi effect in the tunnels underneath the car. This dramatically increases the downforce generated, allowing the driver to take corners at higher speeds and significantly improving stability, particularly through high-speed sweeps like those found in Vegas.
So it's a huge advantage.
If a team can run 1 or 2 millimeters lower than their rivals, they gain an undeniable, measurable performance advantage. The skid block rule is designed explicitly to stop this exploitative behavior.
What's fascinating, and something we must explain, is the mechanical interplay that causes this excessive wear. It's not necessarily an intentional design failure, is it? But a failure of prediction.
That's a key distinction. The F1 car setup is an unbelievably complex calculation. Engineers set the car's ride height, how high it sits off the ground, based on simulation data from free practice, track maps, and predicted tire stiffness. But there are several unpredictable factors on race day that cause unexpected scraping.
Such as the track conditions in Vegas, I imagine.
Exactly. Factors include the track surface roughness. Vegas is new, sometimes bumpy asphalt. Then there's the high-speed compression effect. On very long straights, like the Las Vegas Strip, the immense aerodynamic load pushing the car down, combined with high speed, compresses the suspension further than engineers might have predicted.
The car sort of squats down.
It effectively squats lower. If the initial setup was already aggressive, running right on the limit, these unforeseen compressions, especially under heavy braking, can cause the plank to scrub against the tarmac repeatedly, leading to excessive illegal wear. It's a failure of predictive engineering, not necessarily malicious intent, but the penalty remains the same.
And this failure, this excessive wear, is not unique. This level of pushing the technical envelope is a repeating pattern in Formula One, proving how razor-thin the margins are.
We must detail the historical precedents because they underscore the severity and consistency of the technical scrutiny. This shows the learner that this isn't a one-off attack on McLaren. It is the price of trying to be the fastest.
Right. Let's start with the most recent example impacting this very season.
We saw Ferrari's Lewis Hamilton disqualified for exactly the same reason, skid block wear, after the 2025 Chinese Grand Prix. That meant a loss of crucial points for Ferrari earlier in the season. We can rewind further to the 2023 U.S. Grand Prix, where Lewis Hamilton, then at Mercedes, and Ferrari's Charles Leclerc were both disqualified following identical skid block failures.
That's astonishing. Two major teams, two top drivers, losing huge points at the same event for the same physical violation.
It speaks volumes about the collective behavior of F1 engineers. They see that margin of a millimeter as a performance gain worth risking. And let's not forget the extremely high-stakes example. Mercedes' George Russell lost what was a potential race win in Belgium last season, again due to the specific technical infringement.
So the FIA is consistent.
Utterly consistent on this rule, irrespective of the consequences or the team involved.
This pattern raises a critical question, and one our learner must consider. Given this constant risk of DQs for running too low, is the FIA doing enough to clarify the rule, or is F1 inherently encouraging this borderline behavior?
It's the constant arms race. The FIA sets the boundary, but the engineer's job is literally to find the fastest possible setup within that boundary. When a team gets disqualified, their rivals learn that the boundary they previously thought was safe can in fact be pushed further. The rule itself is clear, minimum plank thickness. But the dynamic nature of F1 racing, the track surface, the tire pressure, the changing weight of the car as fuel burns off, all of that makes achieving perfect compliance incredibly difficult when you're running on the absolute limit.
Yeah.
These DQs are the painful evidence of teams testing the boundaries in real time.
And in a championship as tight as this one, that painful evidence has massive immediate consequences.
This is where we move from the technical violation to the sporting crisis. The disqualifications in Las Vegas didn't just strip McLaren of their points, they fundamentally destabilized the entire World Drivers' and Constructors' Championships with only 2 races remaining.
Yeah, let's analyze the raw numbers. Norris was P2, earning 18 critical points. With those 18 points gone, the scoreboard resets, and the championship just explodes back into jeopardy.
Before Vegas, Lando Norris held a decent cushion, allowing him to manage the final races defensively. Post-DQ, the lead is slashed. Norris is now only 24 points ahead of both Max Verstappen and Oscar Piastri. This 24-point margin is the new defining factor of the end of the season.
24 points sounds manageable, but in the context of F1, particularly with a specific schedule coming up, that is a wildly volatile lead.
It is, and we need to clarify for our learner why this specific points total is so dangerous. Let's look at the maximum points still available across the remaining 2 rounds. Our sources state that a maximum of 58 points are still available across the penultimate race in Qatar and the finale in Abu Dhabi. This high total is entirely due to the structure of the next race.
Which brings us to the structure of the penultimate race. Qatar next weekend, which is a sprint event.
The sprint event changes the entire calculation. In a standard Grand Prix, the maximum score is 26 points, 25 for the win, 1 for the fastest lap. But in a sprint weekend like Qatar, points are available on both Saturday and Sunday.
So let's clearly lay out the points breakdown for the Qatar sprint weekend to show the high volatility.
Certainly. In a sprint race, the top 8 finishers score points, with P1 earning 8 points, P2 earning 7, and so on, down to 1 point for P8. Then, on Sunday, the main race still awards 25 points for the win, plus 1 point for the fastest lap.
So the maximum points a single driver can score in Qatar is 34 points. 8 from the sprint, 25 from the Grand Prix win, and 1 for the fastest lap.
Exactly. 34 points available in one weekend. When Lando Norris's lead is only 24 points over his 2 rivals, the danger is palpable. Verstappen or Piastri could, theoretically, wipe out the entire deficit in Qatar alone.
That significantly raises the stakes. Norris can no longer afford to manage his lead conservatively. He has to go on the offensive to secure the title as quickly as possible. The final race is in Abu Dhabi on December 7th, but the drama needs to be resolved, or at least escalated, in Qatar.
The focus is absolutely on Qatar. The specific condition for Norris to secure the World Drivers' Championship in Qatar makes for thrilling mathematics. He must increase his lead beyond the available points in Abu Dhabi, which is 26 points.
So given his current 24-point lead, what must he achieve in Qatar?
The arithmetic demands ruthlessness. Norris must earn 2 more points than both Verstappen and Piastri over that single sprint weekend. If he finishes the Qatar GP weekend with a 26-point lead or more over both rivals, the title is mathematically secured.
Let's run a quick scenario just to visualize this tension. If Verstappen were to win the sprint, 8 points, and win the Grand Prix, 25 points, scoring 33 points total, and Norris only managed to score 9 points across the 2 events, that 24-point lead would be gone in a single weekend.
Precisely. That volatility forces Norris into a high-risk strategy. He must chase maximum points in the sprint and the Grand Prix, knowing that any mistake or technical failure will hand the momentum directly to his pursuers. It transforms the final 2 races into a direct, unrelenting shootout. The tiny wear on a skid block in Las Vegas has achieved what months of intense racing could not, throwing the title back into an open fight.
The incredible pressure on the engineers in Qatar will be immense, too. Knowing the reason for the Vegas DQ, they must now reevaluate their setup. Do they push the ride height for speed and risk another disqualification, or do they play it safe and risk losing vital pace to Verstappen and Piastri?
That is the ultimate strategic dilemma that the Vegas penalty has imposed upon McLaren. It's not just a points penalty, it's a psychological and engineering restriction heading into the highest stakes weekend of the season.
If we look back at the 2025 Las Vegas Grand Prix, the story is defined by a complete duality. On one side, we had the greatest expression of F1's move toward global entertainment, a spectacle defined by celebrity, drones, and a fan dichotomy over whether it was a boring race wrapped in outrageously tacky marketing or a necessary fun spectacle.
And on the other, you have the cold, hard, unfeeling truth of elite engineering. All the money, all the lights, all the corporate razzmatazz meant absolutely nothing when faced with the cold steel calipers of the FIA technical delegate. The drama that truly mattered, that fundamentally altered the course of the World Championship, happened quietly, post-race, in the scrutineering bay.
So the key takeaway for you, the learner, is the complete picture. A race defined by corporate saturation and karaoke SUVs, immediately followed by a championship that was suddenly thrown back into maximum high-stakes jeopardy, all because of tiny illegal pieces of worn wood underneath 2 leading cars. It is the perfect distillation of the F1 paradox.
And this saga, reinforced by the historical context of similar DQs for Hamilton, Leclerc, and Russell, highlights the obsessive pursuit of performance. The technical rules are clear, yet the pressure for marginal gains is overwhelming. And that leads us to our final provocative thought. Does the immense pressure placed on F1 engineers to extract every possible microsecond of performance, the knowledge that running a car a fraction of a millimeter lower could mean the difference between victory and defeat, inherently lead professional, multi-million-pound teams to push the technical regulations past the breaking point? Do they now view the occasional, high-profile disqualification as an acceptable, calculated risk necessary for maximizing their car's speed when a championship hangs in the balance?
It's the highest stakes gamble in motorsport, and we'll see if that gamble pays off or if it costs Lando Norris the title as we head into the high-stakes sprint weekend in Qatar. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.